I'm going to get started because this is my time on the agenda, and I don't want to speak. But I'm really just here to thank everybody for coming. This is a really project that's dear to my heart. The remediation at 43 Hempstead Street to make clean space for our kids mostly. We have a lot of kids in the neighborhood, and it's just, and for the oldest people as we get older, we kind of envision ourselves there. But I'm going to let Lisa talk about the park more, our vision, and the work we've done thus far. Tom is going to do the overview of the park. We've been working 20 plus years on that. But I just wanted to welcome and point out a few people. My name is Kathleen Barrett, and we have our mayor here tonight, Mayor Passero in the back. Hey. Yes. Of course, Tom Bombria, our brownfield guy at the city. Woo! And Yamila, our neighborhood coordinator. We have Nicole from the Hempstead Houses, which is our very dear museum in the neighborhood. Our techie people here, Bob and Rana, very thankful for them. And then our experts from this side, way in the room out over here. But let me get it right. We got Neil and Ann and Amy. Yeah. Okay, so these guys are from VHB, and they're going to translate that document that's over there that you don't want to look at because it's really hard to understand. And we have somebody here from DEEP also, right? Connecticut DEEP, and that's Amanda Lemisher. Okay. Is anybody important? But they're all important. Thank you for coming, and thanks for listening in. It's really the purpose of our meeting today is to decipher the they call it the ABCA document that the engineers put together on how to, or what's in the parcel that needs to be remediated and how to remediate it. And then it's really also time equally for people to ask questions. Because I know when I read it, I'm like, what does that mean? And I'm a foreign language specialist. Anyway, thank you very much. I'm going to ask Tom to do the overview. Thanks, Tom.
Hi, Tom Bombria, the Community and Economic Development Project Coordinator. I'm also the Brownfields Coordinator, and for some reason I fell into that many years ago, but I'm no Brownfields expert. I write and manage grants, and I'm a project manager, so I know how to hire good people and work with the state and the federal government, the EPA, and DEEP and DECD, so I managed to get a few grants along the way. And one very significant one that's got us here right now is an $615,000, and the city had a $123,000 match. And you know, the EPA was offering a $500,000 cleanup grant, and there were exceptions for distressed communities like ours for asking for more, and we ended up with the $615,000. At the time, we might have been able to do this cleanup with that amount of money and some accessory assessments, but due to inflation, you know, the costs have skyrocketed, and we'll find out soon enough when we go out to bid, and the market's going to tell us what it's actually going to cost. And we've been cobbling up various funds together to, you know, make sure we could get this, you know, to the end and get a park for everybody and get a clean, safe, open space. And so this grant's main intent and goal was to create this clean, safe environment. And, you know, we'll continue to seek funds, and it might be capital improvements from the city. You know, they manage parks. They have been going around the city doing a great job updating a lot of the parks, and hopefully Hempstead, 43 Hempstead Street will be targeted soon, and there'll be some support there. And in the meantime, our office will continue pursuing grants, and I'm sure every time something pops up, Kathleen will let me know what's new and out there to work on. And so, you know, we've gotten a lot closer, and it's taken a long time. I met Kathleen probably in 2000 or 1998. I started working for the city in 1997, and started only writing grants and working on them in 2011. And I made a couple attempts, for a grant for assessment work at Hempstead Park and didn't get anything until 2021-22 when we got the EPA award that ended up with a RFP to hire a consultant, hired VHB. They're working diligently. It takes a lot of work. They're going to explain all their work and all the different levels of assessments and the reasons for what they're doing. And pretty soon we'll be able to go out to bid for a environmental contractor to show up with the trucks, backhoes, and replace some dirty soil. So some clean fill. And there'll be time for a question and answer at the end, but I'm gonna, I think you're next, Lisa, so I'm gonna let Lisa go for it.
So I will keep it short and sweet. And a lot of you already do know what is happening with the park, but Kathleen asked me to talk to you about the park designs, which are in the back. Because we worked with Vida Nueva, Marta from Vida Nueva, to come up with some designs. It was based on feedback from people in the neighborhood. And we wanted the park to be a place for people aged from 0 to 100 plus, right? A place where people could get together, enjoy other members of the community, possibly have a party, so someone's birthday party, have a picnics for the neighborhood. Other people want, some of these designs, you'll see one has an exercise station. That's what some people were interested in. Then like a little loop for people to walk around. Maybe kids could learn how to ride a bicycle on the loop, or people could push a walker on the loop. Chairs kind of seated comfortably, so conducive to conversations. So it wasn't just a chair facing nothing, or just to make it a little interesting, thoughtful, not just put together without thought. So in community gardens was definitely, people were interested in that. And a pavilion for people to gather. So these are just some ideas, nothing, and most importantly, it was a place for the kids to play, right? Because I have like a postage stamp yard, like a lot of people in my neighborhood, where there wasn't green space. So that was the driver. And I think that, so we have these two designs, and it's kind of, they're like, this is a conversation, an ongoing conversation. And we're hoping that some of these designs can be made into reality, maybe in phases as we raise money with grants, right? So I believe if we build it, we're going to get what we, that we're just going to make it happen. People already have made a lot happen. And I heard today there's talk about something else that we want to happen for a pavilion. And so things becoming a reality.
We have a cute pet here, who's just one of our counselors in the city of New London. Thanks for coming. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Valancourt. I'm a licensed environmental professional and director of environmental services for VHB's Connecticut office. Here with me today is Pam Lynn. She is also an LEP. She is an LEP of record for this site. And Neil Holstein, who is our boots on the ground field guy, and many of you neighborhood people have already seen him there. Tonight, we are going to talk about, quickly, because we want to get into dialogue with you folks, what we've done to date and our two documents that we've prepared. One of them being what's called an ABCA. It's the Alternative Brownfield Cleanup Analysis. And that really is just a factual document on what you can do to clean up. And they give you different scenarios for cleaning up with cost estimates. And then the other document that we've prepared is a draft remedial action plan that is pushing, leaning towards, I should say, one of the alternatives. But In order to finalize those documents is the purpose of this meeting. We need to come out and get some input from the public. It needs to be incorporated into these documents. And then we need to come up with the final remedial action plan that gets submitted to DEEP. And that plan has to get approval before we move forward. And tonight I'm actually giving up my spot presenting because I'm going to give it to Pam Lind.
Okay, Pam. She's always in the spotlight.
I'm done talking. Pam's the new generation.
So Amy already gave us the introduction slide, so that one. I do want to say thanks to Tom because he is the man behind the machine, as you guys are very comfortable on. I love that. You guys seem like such a great, close-knit neighborhood community. It's wonderful to see. This is, you went through several steps to get to this point. Checked off a ton of boxes to get here. There were several environmental site assessments already done in 2000 and 2001. Targeted brownfield analysis in 2010, and that was funded by the EPA. And then you got this EPA remediation grant funding. And then we went into obtaining us, VHB, as your environmental consultants. That's when we enrolled the site into the voluntary remediation program. And that's basically the state's prescribed mode to get us through the property, get the property through to site verification. And that's just our LEP way of saying, hey, you look good. The site is clean to its point of use. And then we went through 2024, and that's when we had some remedial design investigations. We had to do a little bit extra remedial design investigation due to basically in between the time of 2010 to 2023 when we enrolled in the VRP. There was some honed in excitement about per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, also known as forever chemicals. And so we had to investigate it. The Crescent Communications, if you're familiar with the history of this site, was an electronics manufacturing facility and the dry cleaner. There used to be a dry cleaner on the property as well. And so those just put up the red flags, and we had to investigate the PFAS. And when we did, we discovered it in the groundwater. And so we had to try and see if it existed in the soils as well. And we did, in fact, find some soils also. So from that, we came down to our development of the ABCA and the RAP. And then the next steps will be, of course, as Amy mentioned, this public comment period and Connecticut DEEP's comments, if they have any. And that'll help us finalize our remedial approach. And this is about a 30-day comment period that we're going to have. And we want to get into the remediation phase so that we can get it ready for construction. So I just kind of want to give a little bit of what's the difference between the two, the ABCA versus the RAP. And the ABCA itself is an EPA required document. The RAP is a Connecticut required document. And the analysis of the brownfields cleanup alternatives, we tell you sort of different options that we have that would help get this property to its land use that we're trying to get to. One of the things about the ABCA is that it is heavily based on cost effectiveness and implementability. So those are three things that they really hone in on, and cost is a factor. So we do want to highlight that and the effectiveness. So we want to make sure that we are leaving you with a property that you want it to be in the state that you want it to be in at the end of it all. And the RAP is the Connecticut's prescribed remedial action plan, which is developed based on the ABCA. After going through that analysis, we come out with this approach that we find best in association with that cost effectiveness and ability. And we do, as I said, so this was kind of the what we came out with our investigation piece and the release areas that were identified. So we had 4 release areas that we identified. The historical lead release, which was previously identified before we came onto the site, and that was up in this area of the site. Let's see, it was the northwestern side. And then we also have the underground storage tanks, which where there was one that was previously identified, or it was an anomaly that was identified up in this section of the property. It was an anomaly, like I mentioned, it doesn't have quite the same features of an underground storage tank, but we're still gonna go ahead and investigate it and make sure, determine really what that was all about. Same thing there, that was a previously identified anomaly. During our investigation piece in 2024, we did identify another underground storage tank that was not previously identified. So that was another one that we did actually identify our release from as well. And then we have the PFAS release, which seems to be in this western corner of the property. And we were able to hone in on the soils that we have noticed that were impacted. The groundwater is much more heavily impacted in this area. So we decided to kind of hone in our soil investigation there. And so, like I said, we were able to kind of refine our soil removal to that location. And lastly, the site-wide polluted film, which I'm sure you're also very well aware of. And that's across the site. It's basically from 0 to 4 feet below grade. Varies all over, and so we're just broad brush, we're saying 4 feet is pretty much where it ultimately is at. So that brought us to the outcome, and we came out with the 3 options that were also identified during previous investigations with the EPA. And starting with no action, which really doesn't help anybody at all, and it would still be fenced off, and you'd be left with nothing. And then our option 2, which is the hotspot soil and tank removal. When I say hotspots, it pretty much means that the soils were pretty heavily impacted, like I had previously mentioned. The site-wide 2 feet of clean fill removal, we would place down a demarcation layer under that, and plus the environmental use restriction. And then lastly was the hotspot and tank removal again, and site-wide 4 feet removal and replacement. And when I talk about the demarcation layer, what it would ultimately be is a brightly, usually orange colored layer that was very permeable, so that in the event that anyone was like, oh, let me just dig down and have a little fun, they came across it and they knew something was up and they would have to stop. And the environmental use restriction, it's on the land records. People know, don't go here. You need to have this released if you want to do anything deep. I know one of the questions was with regard to that. And yes, if in the future you say you want to put a pavilion, for example, and it goes down a couple feet or whatever it needs to be, you can have the environmental use restriction released for that time and do your dig. Make sure that the people who are doing it are well versed. They have their health and safety plan, and they know that what types of contamination they'll be coming into contact with. Because now we do have those results and we know the kind of contamination that's there. And because the type of contamination that would be left is essentially this polluted fill, which is just brick, ash, coal ash. It's these types of soils, these types of components in the soil that are not very leachable. They don't go into the groundwater. We know that they're not, that's what we call the pollutant mobility criteria, and we know they're not exceeding that. So we know that they're not going to get into the groundwater. And ultimately, at the end of all this, when we do take out these hot spots, the two originally, the UST, the underground storage tank found here, and the PFAS release. The problem is that those two are exceeding this pollutant mobility criteria, so they are releasing into the groundwater. And originally, that was not an idea, that was not a concern. So we were thinking we could just collect the groundwater, get our compliance monitoring, and be done with it. But after this, we're going to have to either reinstall these wells if they do end up being destroyed, or we have to put in their groundwater monitoring well network, which would be flush mount. So when the wells go in, they're going to be flushed to the ground. They're not going to be the stocks that we have right now. Then have a nice dash and smack into it. They'll be safe and you can run right over it. And this is our anticipated schedule. this is where we are now. We're having our comment period about the analysis of the brownfields cleanup alternatives, and ultimately we'll end up finalizing these two, the APA and the RAP, with our public comment and Deep's comment. And then it will go out to bid, as Tom had mentioned, and eventually we'll get out there. We'll do our remediation through the summer, and then we have to develop our remedial action report, which is going to say what we end up doing, and we have to do our 4 quarters of post-remediation groundwater monitoring, compliance groundwater monitoring, to make sure, like I had mentioned, that we're no longer having any contaminants leaching into the groundwater. Thankfully, in this area, there aren't any sensitive receptors. There's nobody drinking water, so that's not a huge concern like that. But it is part of our regulations. And then it'll bring us eventually to our actual site verification.
And while you're there, can you emphasize the finish date of the construction and the replacement soils, and point out that the monitoring is a requirement that you're going to be back to check on the site, but it will be completed. This isn't going to be an unusable site all the way to April 2000.
Definitely not. Definitely not. As soon as they're done, we're backfilled. You can with the site what you want.
Looks like, according to this schedule, July.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Wait, is it the beginning or the end of
Looks like the
end?
Yeah.
I mean,
It changes every minute.
We're gonna say end of July for CYA, but of course, if we can get it done sooner, that's all.
And yeah, you'll just see Neil every now and then coming around to collect his groundwater sample, and it'll be gone. So that's where we come with the public comment period itself, and you can address your questions to either me or to Tom. Tom posted the sign out there today.
Thursday.
So that's out there, and it has my information on it. That is pretty much a requirement of the regulations, the LEP on the sign, and it is funded through the EPA, so we have them as well. But I know you guys are very familiar with Tom, so of course, feel free to call. And that was it. That was the end. And I do just want to point out that this is the remediation phase, not the construction phase. So if you do have questions, please hone in on the remediation questions and not construction, because that'll be after. Or Blaine?
But if there's a question, or you can explain how it's not prohibitive to do any construction. You can repeat and maybe go further into what it might take to do construction in the future, even though you're only removing 2 feet in most areas. Some areas are going to have more than 2 feet removed, according to this plan, correct?
Yeah,
The
the hot spot, the tank removal, those are going to be deeper. So if it comes out where you're like, I want a pavilion, and those spots are 4 feet, and you could put a pavilion right there and make it easier on yourselves too. But like, if you do want to keep it in a location that has the 2 feet only removal and replacement, you can absolutely do that. You can get a release, and keep in mind that the option 2, the 2 feet removal, is half the price of doing a 4 foot removal. And I understand that there's this concern that you're still going to have some contaminants left below that demarcation layer, but at the same time, the end result is the same. So you're going to get the same result with half the cost. And so that's why we decided option 2 is the best, but why we're having. Yeah.
But if we get a windfall all of a sudden, we can certainly do 4 feet.
Yes.
As a matter of course.
Yeah.
But we're going to do a safe project and create a safe space and do something that's affordable at this moment with resources that we anticipate.
I will add a couple things because I was at a couple of the end meetings with Vita Nova. anything that they had put together for your construction only adds to that layer of protection. You know, you're looking at maybe a pavilion. Typically, they have concrete slab or concrete slab. The size of the pavilion that they were showing or gazebo, we don't anticipate that you're going to have to go down to 4 feet. The concrete footings are about 2 feet, and then the posts are set in there. Even if there was some size bigger structure you were doing and you had to go down a little deeper than 2 feet, the amount of soil you would have for a 4x4 or 6x6 post is really minute. So even coming after the fact with your construction, we're looking at it like we're setting it up for you to just come and do what you need.
During remediation, during that phase, when you're going to be digging it out, is there going to be any concerns about air quality or rainwater?
So we do have a sediment and erosion plan. We include that in the RAP as well. It is something that we pay attention to. We put down state fencing around the dig area. It's not like we're going across the whole thing and just going nuts and, you know, taking out it all at once. Due to the different locations of the hotspots and the way we're going to have to segregate them. So we're going to probably dig out tanks and deal with them at one moment, and then dig out the release from the tank and deal with that at one moment. It will require different disposal facilities. Specifically, the PFAS will require disposal as well, and different types of analysis to that stuff. So, we do keep those things in mind. The erosion, sedimentation, that's a concern. Air quality, of course, if it starts getting dusty and nuts like that, we have ways of closing it down, keeping the dust. It's surrounded by houses. We don't want people. There's a dust control monitoring plan in the RAP.
Also, when we write the bid specifications for the contractors to bid on, there's an entire section just devoted to no dust, how to control it, how to control runoff. All the stockpiles have to be covered with polyethylene and secured so that rainwater isn't coming in contact and it's not running off the property. Neil's a watchdog with that stuff. So I have full confidence you'll be happy.
And this group has got to be on site monitoring that kind of work. We don't just leave it up to the contractor and hope for the best.
The whole time.
What is it going to look like at the end of July?
It's going to be grass. Well, it's going to be
Dirt with grass seed getting watered. Again, as part of the bid specifications, it requires the contractor to establish grass. He can't be released or get his retainage or anything until that grass grows.
But just grass.
Just grass for now.
And is to maintain stability of the surface area. And they can't walk away without that area being stable.
And there is monitoring. Pam, if you want to, Amanda leaned over and gave me a little ear. If you want to talk about the maintenance and monitoring after the fact, once you have the engineer control in place, we look at it like inspections have to be done to make sure that's maintained. So, it's not like it's just done and that's it. It's at that maintained.
And one more question. How hard will it be to get permit? Because we're going to have a fence around it. And I think Kathleen was saying they might have to dig down 3 feet. Is that right? Is that going to be hard to get that permission? Or?
Typically with a fence, they don't dig and pull the soil out. They install the poles. So it's really like a push mechanism. What type of fencing?
It's custom made by the local artist, so it's not like commercial.
Metal or wood?
Metal.
Yeah, typically those are installed through a push mechanism.
And I think he was might need putting.
So
There are 2.5 to 3 foot footings. There are 60 of them around 3 sides of the park.
Okay.
I would say if you have any detail on that, if you can send it to Tom and get it to me, I'd look at that.
Yeah, by the time any scope of work and bids are gonna go out, we'll address that issue and try and incorporate any necessary remediation to facilitate footings, you know, for a fence, because we know that there's some funding for fencing, and so we're not gonna, we're gonna try and make that cost efficient by working together on that, and not just waiting and starting all over again, or digging up a mess where, you know, somebody had just cleaned up 2 feet, and maybe we should have done more at that point sooner. You know, we're gonna work together to mitigate that being wasted money.
When we look at the site, you know, most of the contamination is towards the center of the site where all the operations take. So if your fence is perimeter fence, we would look at that if you sent us the detail. And if during our work, we had to go to an area to do a removal, to get you that extra, we would look to do that while we're there.
Yeah, so Tom, Brian Sear is on that. We've met with him at the site and looked at the different locations for the 3 sides of the fencing, and he's working with Jesse Good on the footings. And I
Okay.
think there's some drawings that have already been provided to the city. And then we've talked about the stone wall, that side that has the historic stone wall, that the city would do that piece. And that would have to be higher anyway than the 4-foot fence that we're looking at. So I don't know if those footings would have to be deeper because it's a higher fence. Keep people out from.
Well, the maximum for any footing would have to be 42 inches, but which is well below the frost line, whether it's a structure or a fence or anything. That would be the maximum. So I'll work with Brian and make sure that I work with these guys when they're over the next 30, 45 days to create the bid scope. And well, it's gonna take a little, you know, they've got to finish the wrap and submit it to DEEP for approval. And at the same time, we'll be working on the bid documents. And so I'll be working with Brian on that.
I have a question for Steve. By the way, did you guys have any comments on the APCA, the wrap there?
They don't get to look at it yet.
Oh, no.
I just crashed it. I was here because I'm.
Oh, so
We
you
invited
did.
them to give them a heads up, it's coming their way.
Okay, I thought you already had, sorry about that.
Welcome.
Can you go back to the map and the hotspots? I guess I was just thinking, because we've done so much work on trying to visualize where things might be. And like Lisa said, the idea of a pavilion where people could have shade or we could have performances. And it's very much in keeping with what neighbors wanted to be able to have. So
Can one of you go up there right now and just point to where you would like the playscape in a pavilion someday, just for these guys to know ahead of time? I mean, I know we have the plan and Vita Nueva helped design that, but that was all conceptual. And is that what you like? Is that a done design, or do you have any other ideas about
No.
what should go where?
like Lisa said, this is kind of a phase project,
Yeah.
you know, and if, let's say the pavilion was the first phase because we would, you know, get a grant for that, for example, then we would like to move forward. And we should be thinking about the optimal place for the pavilion, because as you said, it would be a hard structure, substrate on top of the soil. So I'm kind of putting it back to you guys. Is there an optimal place to put that, given the contamination that you found? I mean, if we would like it to be a logical place, that not going to look the playing field, because like that.
Again, I participated in the last 2 meetings from Vita Nueva, and I really liked their design. I thought their placement of the pavilion down in the bottom right corner made sense. I've been out there, I've seen the topography of the site. The kids' playscape was a little more up along near the stone wall you spoke about. I thought that was a nice place because it's out away from the roads. You know, they wouldn't be playing near the roads. They would be up high where they're in a clear line of sight of the parents down on the pavilion. I thought they did a really good job in putting that together from the input.
Which we know this area is actually, so it's kind of lining up a little nicely here, because that was gonna be a deeper spot, deeper dig anyway, so. Not have that concern.
And along that line, if somebody comes, we have to have, contractors come back and remove soil, contaminated soil. What's the cost factor there?
Well, so they're gonna dig it up and remove it, is, yes,
It would depend on the volume, but we would think that anything they would come back and put in short of building a building with a basement is gonna be minor amounts of soil generated, what you folks wanna do.
Is it hazardous waste that would have to go to a hazardous waste facility?
So based on our sampling, we're not anticipating that we're gonna be finding large volumes of hazardous waste out there. In our cost estimate, we did include a small contingency in case we did find a pocket of hazardous lead. Previous consultants reported the lead to be hazardous. When we went out there, we were sampling it. We did not find it to be hazardous.
So does that mean that contaminated fill and hazardous materials are two different things?
Yes,
Okay,
hazardous is a red level. Contaminated fill material, I'm sorry, is everywhere. Everywhere. You guys know. So, contaminated fill for us is a lot easier to deal with. You know, there are plenty of mechanisms to cap it, to consolidate it. You know, there's a number of things LEPs can do. When you have hazardous materials, you know, I just tell people, dig it out, get rid of it.
but to answer the question, the specific question, to pull it out, and is it a disposal issue?
You have to dispose of it properly. And in our APCA and graph, we provide cost estimates on what it would be if the soil was non-haz and what it would be as haz. So one of the things I did say to Tom, if this were to occur where you come after the fact to do something and have some material to deal with, you'll know what those cost estimates. We provided them to you in that document. So it depends on the volume.
So apparently it's more cost efficient to wait and deal with that as something new is constructed, as opposed to what I imagined originally as determining certain footing sites and digging out a few extra scopes, laying the liner deeper, and bringing in a few extra scoops or trucks or whatever necessary in clean fill. And I was told that that would be more costly than it would be to do a specific removal in those, if you have a 12-inch footing, you might dig a 12-inch hole, or, with a auger, or you might dig a lot bigger hole, but it's still going to be more cost efficient to dig and dispose of later than to try and prep for it ahead of time.
You also have indicated, even in this meeting, you haven't finalized your plan. You're still working on it. It's an evolving plan. If you were to tell me today that, here are the 4 areas for our footings, and I go dig them out, and the contractor comes 2 days later and says, hey, I got to move that 4 feet. That work we did to ready doesn't matter, because now you got to move it. So again, with everything you're planning, not being a full structure with a basement, there may be small amounts of soil that your contractor will have to deal with in doing your construction, but we think it's going to be minor.
And, you know, I don't know if this would happen, but if we got lucky with our bids and it was more affordable than expected, and we found a couple other resources for funds, if during this remediation phase, if we could afford to put footings in, to do that prep work during this phase, we will. But that I can't promise, but we haven't gone out and the market hasn't told us exactly what it's going to cost us. And we're not done looking for money. So, that's a possibility. I mean, that would be the best scenario, that we would do a lot of prep work and have that infrastructure ready for whenever we could afford to build a pavilion or put a playscape.
I will throw this out there for you, Tom, because VHB is all about the added value for our clients. If we're building bid specs and you know the type of fence you want, you know certain things that you're looking for in your development, we can put that in the bid specs as an add alternate. So at least you're getting real costs from a contractor on what that might be to put it in. If you didn't have the funding or you were trying to apply for funding to get a grant to do something, we can maybe get you a cost for some of that in our bid spec. Not that it would be done during our project if we didn't have the funding, but at least that could help you get some information.
That we will do.
The fence is being constructed as we speak. So this is a grant that we received for $45,000 specifically to build the fence with a local fence metal worker artist. So it's in the works. It's a definite. And so we've been coordinating with Brian Zero.
Okay. Well,
so I'm not sure if they have this. I know they have 60 footings at the property line.
okay.
And it doesn't require as, I guess, because the fence itself is only 4 feet. So the footings aren't, they didn't expect more than 2.5. They wanted to go with 3.
If your fence is, your fence is built from your manufacturer and it's ready to go, it would be easy enough for us to add into the bid specs for the contractor to install that fence when we do our work.
Or the footing supports
For the footings,
for the
yeah.
fence to get installed when they're done doing the what do you call it, the grading, the grading and grass.
Just trying to make it most cost effective for you all. We have limited funds for, doing the remediation, but if it's something that we can combine to get value for you, we could do it.
On the far end, the stone wall side of the park, I agree that Vida Nueva did a really nice job with the park designs and incorporating people's thoughts. So that tree line that is on that far side, is that something that the, final grading excavation would take into account, that, we'll probably want to put trees along that to keep kids from climbing and getting into those rocks and setting the neighbor, because it's a real liability.
We haven't discussed that at that point.
Well, we'll have to talk about that as far as landscaping, any landscaping that you guys are planning. Our contract and our work would just be to have seeding put down. We wouldn't be doing any landscaping, but if it's something that you guys are looking to do in the future, we would have to look at it in our remedial plan, same as your fence. Yep. You know the type of trees.
No, but we do have London trees that are been very come to the site, talk to us, and I think they're knowledgeable. I mean, on that, if New London Trees had volunteers planting trees after everything, it's safe for them to be digging, right? That full 2 feet is safe.
That
Everybody just has to know
Yeah.
if you hit the orange.
Yeah.
So, and that's how is that knowledge shared with the public? Is there like a sign right about it? If like a kid wants to dig a really deep hole.
That even came up at the meeting on Friday, where Pam said that, some kid and nobody's paying attention, all of a sudden he's, going to town with a little beach shovel, and all of a sudden, gets carried away. It could happen in an hour or two. So,
Well, I'll say, a child with a little beach shovel's gonna, break through the orange plastic snow fence, but yes, it is, something that, is gonna be on the land records, and, whether you put up a sign, no digging in the grass. We try to, in the park situation, you have designated areas for the kids to play. You put a sandbox, you expect that that's where they're going to be doing their digging.
And as part of the maintenance and monitoring that Amanda did bring up, because I didn't, we do have to check it every year. The owner of the property has to go out every year and check it and make sure that it's up to snuff still. Digging, there aren't holes all over the place that weren't expected or weren't there before. To make sure that it maintains the cap, that filter cover is maintained.
I'm sorry, is the cap over the entire space or is it just the hot spots?
No, it's going to be the whole
Space.
Yep.
Okay.
It'll just be deeper in those.
USTs ever capped and left in the ground, or they're removed?
They'll be removed. It is an option, but we wouldn't do that. Not in this situation.
Yeah, right.
Any other questions?
Thank you all very much. We
Yeah.
appreciate your thought.
Well, we're hoping there's some kind of big barbecue and ribbon cutting.
Yeah.
July.
I'm sure Courtney wants that. Yeah. Or when,
Yeah.
not if. So we have a, yeah, any final questions?
I do have one question. Do we need to, for people at home in Hempstead, do we need to park elsewhere? Is there like any machinery that's going to be on the side that we should look out for so we can make sure to leave room, or is that not?
Well, definitely during the work, that site is gonna be fenced off. The contractor will be required to have that site fenced. All equipment will be on the site, nothing on the road. There will be a gate that they will drive in and out. When we're hauling away soil, we are going to try as much as possible is to live load right in the truck. So the truck backs in, we live load them up, he leaves. The next truck comes. We may have one idling truck at one time on the road, but we wouldn't leave them out there for long.
Hi, I'm Lydia. I'm part of the Freedom Trail Neighborhood Association and doing some closing remarks, but thank you guys so much. It's so helpful to hear it explained in English, and having tried to read the document, much better.
You can imagine how it is to write them then.
What a cool job you have.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're super excited about the park, and I know a lot of folks here are already engaged in the neighborhood, but if you're new and you're thinking about getting more involved in the neighborhood, let us know. We do cleanups. We're hoping to do a Black History Trail walk with Nicole, maybe. We're going to be talking about naming the park and like what we're excited about celebrating about our neighborhood's history, which I think is really interesting. So start thinking about that, and you can always get in touch with Kathleen or Estelle or me or any of us. And there's a Freedom Trail Neighborhood Association Facebook page that you can follow for updates and for cleanups, which are a really good time. But it is fun. And just a huge thank you to VHB and to Deep and to the EPA and Absentia and the mayor and Tom and everyone who's put time into this project. Kathleen Barrett for making it happen. My God, she's been working on this for 20 years at least.
going.
Yeah. But yeah, just a big thank you and stay involved, and I'm sure there'll be more meetings.